65 yards. This time he fumbles the ball.
You must be out of your goddamn mind. What the hell is wrong with you people?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Victory Monday. That makes 5 weeks in a row. The Minnesota Vikings, of course, yesterday wasn't easy, but they took care of business against the Arizona Cardinals. Not only a one-score victory, but a one-point victory as the Vikings beat the Cardinals 23-22 to move to 10-2 on the season and keep pace with the Detroit Lions. The whole game just really started out flat, especially on the offensive side of things. Talked to some people who were actually at the game, said that was the quietest that U.S. Bank has been for a long time. Just everything seemed off to start out the game. I mean, again, we had another one of those early drives where Aaron Jones, for the second week in a row, has a fumble. Victory Monday tastes a lot like a hangover Monday. Yeah, it does, Doc. But hangovers are easier to tolerate if you're doing it because of a victory. It could be worse. We could be sitting here talking about another 1-point loss and trying to, be pissed about all that stuff. But the Aaron Jones thing has got me a little bit concerned here now. And the Vikings running game yesterday was pretty much non-existent. I think they ran for like 22 yards or something like that. It was not good at all. I mean, the entire offense in general through the first half, I think, was at 47-ish yards, something like that. Just if it wasn't for the defense, again, yesterday, this game would have gotten ugly in a quick hurry. The Cardinals were in the red zone 6 times, and out of that only got 1 touchdown. So the defense, for the most part, did their job. They did let Kyler Murray get out and run a couple of times, which, was one of the things that we talked about on Saturday that you couldn't do. And they went out and did it. James Conner got going a little bit. But, when it came down to crunch time, after that, the Vikings went down 13 points in the fourth quarter. All of a sudden, the switch flipped and Darnold come out was money. The offense started moving the ball. And then the defense, stepped up even more than they had for the other part of the game, got 2 key turnovers to, help hold things in check and let the Vikings mount their comeback. That 13-point deficit was the largest comeback in Sam Darnold's career. There was a lot of, I guess, not necessarily firsts, but important key points or levels hit by a bunch of players yesterday and the coaching staff as well. With that win, starting off with the coaching, Kevin O'Connell became the fastest coach in Vikings history to win 30 games in the regular season. This is in his 46th game. Doing your best and your best is required. That's exactly what happened, Josh. When they needed it down at the end of the game, they dug down deep and pulled it out. And for those of you who were watching our buddies Drew and Ted and Chris on Vikings Report Rewind yesterday after the game, that's one thing that they brought up too. That I think Ted brought this up. He said the Vikings never seem to be out of a game, and back previous coaching staffs, when Zimmer was here, when the Vikings would have went down 13, they'd have packed up the tent and been done. But there isn't there's no quit in this team. And Norsefius, good evening. Drew's train horn whistle. Yeah, I'm not going to do the whoop whoop or whatever. That's close enough. But yeah, this team doesn't have any quit in it, which, is big when it comes down to these one-score games. But, and I got another thing on here, but like what I was mentioning with Kevin O'Connell, fastest coach in history to 30 games. He did it in 46. Denny Green was second quickest at 48. Bud Grant hit it at 50. Jerry Burns hit it at 51, and Mike Zimmer hit it at 54. Now, Susan, good evening. Now, talking about, the no quit in the one-score games, this was an interesting stat line I saw today, too, when I was scrolling through the Twitterverse. In one-score games, Vikings coach's career, Kevin O'Connell is 24-9 at a 727 winning percentage in one-score games. Second best was Denny Green at 52-33 at a 612 win percentage. Bud Grant was third at 580, 70, 50, and 5. Then after Bud, it went to Zimmer at 508. Childress at 459. Frazier at 446. Oh, sorry, Mike Tice was at 484. He was above Childress. Jerry Burns at 415. Les Steckel was actually 429 in one-score games. All three of those wins that he got in that 3-13 year were one-score games. And then Norm Van Brocklin brings up the rear at 385. But opponents should be afraid that we can come back. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's hard for them to. You have to basically blow the Vikings out in order to put them away. And as we've shown before, like the Colts game last year, the Bills game, and some of these other ones, even if you blow them out early, they still are going to try to claw back into this thing and try to make a game out of it at the very least. So, that's one of the main things that's jumped out in the culture that has changed since Kevin O'Connell and company have been here. And that, that's eventually going to get them someplace. It will, maybe not this year, but eventually that will get this team to where we want it to be. And that's hoisting a Lombardi trophy in February. Couple other ones here. Talking about Sam Darnold, again, no turnovers yesterday. So that's the third game in a row without a turnover. I'm not counting that fumble that Aaron Jones had 3 weeks ago because that was on him. That wasn't on, that was on Jones. That was credited to Darnold, but it wasn't on him. But Sam Darnold yesterday recorded his 10th game this season with a passer rating of 100 or greater. That ties Dante Culpepper in 2000 and Brett Favre in 2009 for the most in a single season in team history. Now, Darnold still got, 5 more games to go to beat that. So, good evening, Robert. So if anybody would have said ahead of the season that Sam Darnold was going to have more 100-yard or 100 plus passer ratings games in this season than any other quarterback in Vikings history, I don't know how many people would have said you were crazy about that, but it looks like it's a very good chance of that happening. This week, Sam made his contract so much better. I think you're right, Robert. You start looking, people are talking about how Jared Goff is one of the front runners for MVP. You match Sam Darnold and Jared Goff's stats together, they are remarkably similar. So, and Darnold is not getting in that conversation. I mean, you're starting to hear some of the chirps and some of the stuff now again in the background that, hey, Sam Darnold's been doing this for 12 or 13 weeks now. Maybe there is something there. And to Robert's point here, Sam Darnold is earning himself a nice contract for next year. The chatter keeps getting louder from the fan base about having to bring Darnold back next year. I still believe that the Vikings are going to stick to their plan, and Sam Darnold probably will play elsewhere in 2025 unless he, decides to give the Vikings a hell of a discount and say, hey, I just want to be here. I'll compete with McCarthy for the starting job or be his backup or whatever. I don't see that happening. I mean, Darnold came out and said after the game yesterday, there's no place he would rather be. And I believe that. But, Darnold deserves to, after this year, deserves to go out and get a decent contract someplace. It's most likely not going to be here. Had another Darnold line. But, we're going to see how the rest of the season goes out, and, things can maybe change, but as it sits right now, I believe that the Vikings are going to stick with their plan of McCarthy being the guy next year. You've got Daniel Jones now in the mix who, if I was to make a guess, I would say Daniel Jones is more likely to end up as the backup here next year to McCarthy than Darnold being back. Eagles are a thing. They absolutely are in Orpheus. And I mean, you have to have an ego to be a professional athlete. I mean, it just kind of goes with the territory. There's a difference between having an ego and being a pompous asshole, but, there is that thing. And Darnold will believe that he should have a nice contract next year, and he absolutely deserves it. And I'm not going to fault the guy one bit if he bolts to go someplace else, for a, Spotrac has him at like 33 a year, which is right about where Baker Mayfield's contract was. He deserves every bit as much as Baker Mayfield's making this year. And possibly even, probably even more than that because it goes up every year. Yeah, look at the teams that are looking for quarterbacks. They're dumpster fires. You can't argue that at all, Josh. I mean, the Jets are probably going to be looking at a quarterback because Aaron Rodgers most likely is not going to be back there next year. The Giants are going to be looking for a quarterback. Where else are we looking at here? The Rams potentially, depending upon what Matt Stafford does. Now, the Rams would be a prime destination for Sam Darnold, I think, just because he knows the offense. McVay's offense and Kevin O'Connell's offense are very similar. Back to San Francisco is a possibility, depending upon what they want to do with Brock Purdy at the end of the year. Purdy has struggled this season. Good evening, Dave. There are potential places with decent teams where Darnold can go next year. But yeah, like to your point, Josh, there's a ton of bad teams looking for quarterbacks, as there always is. And, does Darnold want to risk reverting back, killing the narrative of how Sam Darnold has become a legitimate quarterback in this league to go to some dumpster fire team, the Saints or whoever, all depends on what they do with the quarterback or with the head coach down with New Orleans. That's a possibility, I suppose, too. But if Kirk and Stay don't see us anywhere near the record, yeah, the Vikings made the right move by letting Kirk Cousins walk, and it's becoming obvious as we go along. I mean, for anybody who watched any part of the Falcons game yesterday, Kirk Cousins looked terrible. He was behind on his throws a lot of times. I mean, he threw 4 interceptions. Now, is he going to have that same kind of a game this week when he comes back to face us? I don't know. It's I think Kirk is going to have a little bit extra, probably wanting to come back and show the team up a little bit. But the other thing, and I was talking to somebody about this on the Twitterverse today, that Flores knows Kirk knows Flores. Which one does that benefit? Does it benefit Kirk because he knows the defense, or does it benefit Flores more because Flores knows all of Kirk's tendencies and what he's going to be doing? I think it benefits Flores more than it does Kirk. For one thing, Kirk hasn't played against this version of Flores' defense. When he was here last year, there was no Grenard, no Van Ginkel, no Cashman. The safeties were the same. Cornerbacks are different. Byron Murphy Jr. was here, of course, but Shaq Griffin, who had a hell of a game yesterday, had that game-sealing interception at the end of the game. The question, Gilmore, when Kevin O'Connell was talking today, they have not ruled out Gilmore yet for Sunday, but they're talking a low-grade hamstring injury, so I would think that it's highly unlikely that Stephon Gilmore plays on Sunday, which would mean we probably get to see more of the island of Fabian Monroe. Or Moreau, not Monroe, sorry. So Moreau probably will get the start. I would think we finally get to see Nudie McGlothern being active this weekend. He's been on the team all season, but has not played as of yet. Might be exploring, looking for another corner. Yeah, if they are, probably it's going to be somebody onto the practice squad. I mean, there's not a lot out there right now that, if they were any good or didn't come with a ton of baggage, they would already be on somebody's team. So we're kind of stuck with what we got. It all depends on how long Gilmore is going to be out. Is it going to be a 3 to 4 week thing where they have to throw him on IR? If so, then then they absolutely probably are going to have to look somewhere. Moreau had a tall task on Sunday. Yeah, I thought he did fine. That one pass interference penalty they called on him was pretty horseshit ticky-tack as far as I'm concerned. The second one, yeah, that was a pass interference. You could call that easy enough, but that first one was pretty weak. And I don't think that most of the time they're not going to get that call. That's a let the guys play kind of thing. But I do too, Dave. I want to see McGlothern play. I had high hopes for that kid in preseason. I liked what I saw out of him when I did the little, the pre-draft write-ups and things like that. I'm interested to see what he can do, even get him in on special teams a little bit. He hasn't been active, I don't believe, yet this year. But he'll probably have to be on Sunday. Being smart on the other one. Yep. I agree 100%, Norris Fiest. You can't really fault him for what he did. But, it is what it is what it is. And they bring, damn it. They bring the new guy in and, they got to pick on him a little bit, and coming off cold off the bench, it's understandable. Did you hear any names, Robert, on people that they might be looking at? I didn't see anything today about it. Uh, Truth be told, I was extraordinarily busy at work today, so I didn't get to do as much research as I normally like to do. Of the 3 people in my department, I was the only one there, so I was a little bit swamped today. But yeah, it's that next man up thing. Rams plucked one this morning. Who did the Rams sign? I didn't see that either, I guess. But Dave, you're up on all this. Do you know of anybody out there that's might be worthwhile to bring in as a fill-in guy for the time being? I haven't looked at the cornerback list lately. Forbes, okay. Yeah, I mean Forbes. He's a guy. I mean, nothing earth-shattering about him, but at this point in time, most of the people that are out there, they're not. If they were any good, like I mentioned before, they would already be on a team. So you're basically scraping the $5 DVD bin at Walmart right now to find any available cornerbacks. Yeah, that's virtually no one out there. I didn't think so. What's his name from the Dolphins, I think, is still out there, but he's got a lot of off the field baggage that I don't think that we really want to deal with, because if we did, he would already be here, even though he is a former Flores guy. Duke Shelley, yeah, I think he's available. I don't think anybody picked him up, but again, he didn't really fit in with what Flores likes to do. He's too short for one thing. I mean, if you had to, he could probably play in a pinch, but again, we're getting pretty desperate at the bottom of the barrel if we got to go start looking for cornerbacks in week 14. So, we'll see what happens when the injury report comes out, starting on Wednesday, but I would venture to guess that Gilmore probably does not play on Sunday. They said Kevin O'Connell said he tried, or he wanted to come back in yesterday, but the team and the coaches thought better of it and kept him on the sidelines, which if you're dealing with a hamstring, that was probably the wise move. Those soft tissue injuries are tricky. If you aggravate it the wrong way, you can make a 2-week injury into a 2-month injury without even doing much to it. So, Ant, good evening. Yeah, McGlothern needs to play some. Yeah, we talked about him a little bit earlier. I think he's probably going to be active this week. Maybe we'll get in on a few plays. If nothing else, he'll be in on special teams, I would think. But the Ivan Pace still out. He's off for a couple more weeks. Now, they did open the practice window, the return to practice anyway, of both Will Richard and Andrew DePaula today. No word yet as if they would be active this weekend. Parker Romo has done well enough that they're not going to rush Richard back if they don't think he's ready. Is Turner going to get more snaps against Atlanta? Turner got quite a few snaps yesterday. I didn't see the actual snap count, but I noticed him out on the field a fair amount. Part of that was Pat Jones got a little shaken up there for a bit, but Turner was getting some run yesterday, and I know he got in on a couple of plays at least. So I think that's going to, start getting a little bit more playing time as we go along here, as he's earning it, I think. And, from what I saw yesterday, he did a decent job. He got in on a couple of tackles and helped blow up a couple of things. So Norsefius got a soft tissue injury once, and I thought my mom washed my. We're not talking about that kind of soft tissue injury. I'm not going to post that. But one other thing I wanted to hit to before I forget it, we can get back talking about the defensive side of things. Justin Jefferson yesterday, a couple of highlight deals for him. He went over 1,000 yards yesterday, which makes him the 4th player in NFL history to go over 1,000 yards in their first 5 seasons, joining Mike Evans, AJ Green, and the great Randy Moss. So hitting some rarefied air there. He also passed Kyle Rudolph for 6th most receptions in the team history. He's only sitting 18 behind Anthony Carter for 5th and 38 behind Steve Jordan for 4th. So there's definitely a possibility that he should be able to hit Anthony Carter before the end of the season over and an outside shot at Steve Jordan. Evans has 10, yeah. But Evans was one of 3 that had done it through 5 years up until yesterday. Now there's 4 with Justin Jefferson. So, yeah, Mike Evans has had 1,000 yards every year he's been in the league, I believe, which is outstanding. Nympha, good evening to the Filipino fan club watching over on the other side of the world. It says Turner's years developing slowly since we got. Yeah, that's the way it's been going, Ant. And I know people have been griping and bitching because he's not getting in there, but who are you going to take out to get him in there? I mean, you got to work him in rotation because Jonathan Gennard is playing like an all-pro this year at one side, and then you got Andrew Van Ginkel at the other side. You can't sit either one of those guys, to give Turner any playing time. It's going to, and Pat Jones, to his credit, I mean, he's sitting at 7 or 8 sacks this year now. So you can't really sit him either. Now, next year, yeah, Pat Jones probably moves on because I don't think they're going to pay him here, which makes Turner be the number 1 rotation guy behind Grenard and Van Ginkel. And, there's nothing wrong with bringing some of these guys along slow. I mean, you throw them to the fire too early, and that stunts the growth on a lot of guys. So I'm not concerned with Turner at all. He'll get his time, and sometimes with these edge rusher guys, it takes them a couple of years too. I mean, you look at some of the guys that we've had in the past. Everson Griffin sat behind Jared Allen for a bit until got up there. Brian Robeson sat behind Ray Edwards and on that side of things. And both of them, when they got their opportunities, turned into extremely good players. And I think Turner will be the same way. I'm not concerned with Turner at all. If anything else, I mean, we're just, surprised on how dominant that Grenard and Van Ginkel have been all season. D has been solid all year. Yeah, it has. I mean, it's had its weak points a couple of different times. I mean, we know there are weaknesses on this team. The secondary is a concern, but Byron Murphy's having a year that's going to get him a new contract next year, probably here. He deserves to come back. I'd love to see him back as long as you keep him playing in the slot where he has been. I mean, that's his natural position, and that's where, he's got 5 interceptions, I think, this year now. So that's the most by a cornerback in quite a few years. I think, well, Pat Peterson had 5 3 years ago, I think it was. So you got to keep an eye on that. Shaq Griffin, like I said, you never hear his name hardly. Yesterday we heard his name and it came up big at the end of the game. He did get burned on one play I remember seeing, but I mean, you're not going to lock everybody down at every point in time. So, more than made up for that with that interception to close the game out. Yeah, five interceptions. And, I remember back in the Zimmer days, Zimmer was always had this, uh, the aura of being the cornerback whisperer. We hardly ever had cornerbacks that had more than one or two interceptions. I mean, like I said, you had Pat Peterson, but Pat Peterson was with that was in the Ed Donatel year, so that wasn't even with the Vikings. The last one before that, I think, was Xavier Rhodes. Maybe they had that many back in 17. I think he had right around, I think, 5 or 6, something like that. So seeing that is a welcome sight. And Bynum has got, what's Bynum got this year? 4, I think. Harrison Smith has a couple. Griffin's got 1. Gilmore's got a couple. So, I mean, the Vikings are opportunistic and taking advantage of this stuff. The problem is when you can't get home on the defensive side, with the pass rush, that's when the back end gets exposed a little bit. But, I'm looking for a big game out of the defense this week. We all know that Kirk Cousins is not a real threat to run the ball or to get out of the pocket. He's going to stand in there, and you start hitting Cousins and sacking him, which we should be able to do this weekend. He's going to get flustered, and that's when he starts making mistakes and could putt. I can't talk tonight. I apologize. But when you get him in that thing, that's when you get like you did this weekend where he throws 4 interceptions. Let's say, I would get this guy or that guy in the draft, but Zimmer would say, no, I need my cornerbacks. Yeah, but yet for all the cornerbacks that Spielman picked over the years, none of them really panned out. That was, the last cornerback that really panned out that they drafted was Xavier Rhodes, and that, lasted for about 3 years, and then he went to the wayside. You had the Cam Dantzler, you had Jeff Gladney, you had insert random cornerback name that all came in, first round pick cornerbacks that none of them panned out. And all the Donkeys wide receivers are 6'4", 6. Yeah, they've got a tall group. I have not really watched much Denver Broncos football this year, but I mean, they got a decent wide receiver core. And as much as I hate to say it, because I hate Sean Payton with a passion, and he can go pound sand on a regular basis, but Bo Nix has been playing very well as of late. Better than I expected he would. I mean, he's always been the that short pass kind of guy, but that works well with Sean Payton's offense. You look back, Drew Brees made a career out of that, playing down in New Orleans, and right now Payton's doing the same thing with Nix that he did with Payton, and with Drew Brees rather, and it seems to be working for him. Yeah, that is my my sentiments exactly, Reggie. There's no individual I dislike in the NFL more than Sean Payton. But we all know where that part of that stems, of course, from the 2009 with the Bounty Gate, and then the thing that I don't know, he's still got that burr up his ass about getting made a fool of on the Minneapolis Miracle game. He comes out this year and says how he baited the Vikings into taking JJ McCarthy just so they could get Bo Nix and all this, that, and whatever all else. It's I just have no time for Sean Payton. Never have, never will. My opinion, the guy should have never been allowed to coach in the league again after Bountygate. But I don't get to make that decision. And he's most likely going to be in Atlanta next year. If they cut him at the end of the year, they are on the hook for $63 million, I believe, in dead cap space. I find it real hard to believe that they're just going to cut bait after a year. He had a bad game yesterday. He's played like Kirk Cousins has always played. Put up some pretty decent stats, good numbers, but when you roll down to it, his team is bouncing right around that 500 level, which is what he did for the most part for, at least the majority of the time he was here. Yeah, we had the 13-4 year, but I don't know that. I mean, you have teams, of course, that would take Cousins. He's got a no trade clause, so he would have to approve going to wherever. And it just makes the whole situation where he's probably not going anywhere next year. I don't think so. I know they like Penix, and they're going to want to see what they got out of him sooner rather than later. But just from a financial standpoint, I don't think that they're going to cut him next year or cut him loose at the end of the year and have to eat all that dead cap space. I have no idea what Atlanta's cap situation is for next year, but as you have seen with the team riding along at 500, they have obvious holes on their team. The defense needs a little work, and they got weapons on offense. Although Kirk didn't even throw it at the unicorn yesterday, and I started him in my fantasy league and got 0 points. So thank you for nothing, Kirk. But yeah, I mean, looking at, as we're talking about Cousins here, it's Falcons week. It is the return of Kirk Cousins to Minneapolis. Of course, you've got the last remnants of the Kyrgyzstan army who are now crawling out of their holes and making their voices chirped up on Twitter, Facebook, all this other stuff. I keep seeing it. I saw it some yesterday. I saw it some today. And it's only going to get louder as we get towards the end of the week here. But, I think the Vikings know Kirk Cousins better than anybody else in the league. So they're going to have a plan for him. They know exactly what he's all about. They probably know Kirk better than Kirk knows Kirk, but Kevin O'Connell does. I'm sure of it. So they're going to have a game plan. You don't have to worry about him running. You got to worry about Bijan Robinson, but you don't have to worry about Kirk Cousins running. So that's, a welcome change from the last 2 days or 2 weeks. But you're going to have to hit him. You're going to have to knock him down, get him off his game, make him get off script, and then you got him. But, as we've all seen, if he's on, it's going to be a hell of a task to keep him, keep him contained, because he can throw up a ton of yards in a real quick hurry if he starts getting in a rhythm. So they're going to have a plan for that. Why couldn't he play this week against us? He looked horrible last week. I mean, who's to say he doesn't have 2 bad weeks in a row? I think there's a legit possibility that happens. It's a noon game, so that, prime time thing, although that became an old tired narrative by the time he left here, doesn't come into play near as much. But, like I said, they're going to have a plan for him, and I feel confident that the plan that they have will be effective against him because, like I said, they know him better than anybody else does. And they know his ins and outs. They know what he can do. They know what he can't do. They know where his weaknesses are. So, that all bodes well for this defense. Turning around on the other side, the offensive line is going to have to step up. Darnold got knocked around pretty good yesterday by a team that doesn't get a lot of sacks. I think they got him, 4 or 5 times yesterday. That interior line, now a couple of those that came up with a late blitz right up the middle and basically a free rusher and nobody was there. Some of that was, your interior guys not coming off the block that they had to at least throw a chip in on those guys. So far, the Dalton Reisner experiment at right guard has not done much for anybody. Now, Ed Ingram was inactive on yesterday against the Cardinals, which I thought was a little surprising, but it just shows how far he has fallen. They said it was to have an extra tackle active just because of Robinson's questionability for the game ahead of time. Now, he did play and made it the entire game, so that was a good sign. But, interior offensive line is still going to have to be something that the Vikings have. It's been an issue forever, and it's going to have to continue to be an issue until they do something about it. Bradbury, Reisner, and even Brandel has fallen off. He started out the season quite a bit, playing really well. And now he's come back to the pack now, and he's struggled a bit the last couple of weeks. Dan Feeney, he's not the answer either, I don't think. You got some young guys in there. You got Juergens and stuff too, but none of those guys are ready. And Feeney's got the mullet, which is cool, but I don't know that he's any better than what we have in there right now, and that's the problem. We're going to have to. I don't know if they have either, Ant. If it is, it's been on special teams, kick teams or something like that, maybe. But I don't think they played anything for offensive snaps. But we have what we have right now with those guys. Not much else that we can do about it until the off season. That's going to have to be where some of this free agent money goes next year, is to find legit players, at least one guard and probably a center. Cardinals had a good defensive game plan. We haven't seen all year, but I agree. Yeah, and that was one comment that I think Greg Olson made during the game, is that the Cardinals really didn't have to change what they normally do on defense against Minnesota because it was kind of a strength for strength type thing. And to the Cardinals' credit, they played well yesterday. The Cardinals have played very well since their bye week. The week prior they did get knocked around by Seattle a little bit, but the Cardinals did everything that they could to win that game yesterday, and it's just the Vikings. Once they finally woke up in the fourth quarter, were able to buckle down and again fall back to be at your best when your best is required, and squeaked out a win, which keeps us, like I said, keeps pace with Detroit. Detroit got lucky as hell on Thanksgiving. I mean, everybody knows that. There's starting to be some chinks in Detroit's armor with the injuries and everything that they're having. They still got, some tough games. The game against Green Bay on Thursday is going to be tough. They got Buffalo next week. That's a tough game. We still have to play us in week 18. So Detroit doesn't have an easy road here at the end. So, I mean, everything's still up in the air. And if we can keep pace with it, things are still not out of the question as far as winning the North. And with the winning the North, you probably win the number 1 seed. You have Philadelphia that you got to worry about in the East, but and they're a solid team as well. But as it sits, I mean, we're 10-2. Is there stuff to work on? Yes, absolutely there is. And Atlanta has their old buddy Mike Hughes. Yeah. They're not going to be lining him up man on Justin Jefferson. They're going to be playing a lot of zone, 2 deep safety, and rolling people over the top to help on Jefferson. They're not going to line anybody that they got up one-on-one. Dan Feeney, total of 40 snaps, all special teams. I knew Dave would know that. The guru of the round bellies there. Jurgen's only 7 snaps, yeah. But with that, that's really all I've got for tonight. Like I said, wasn't a whole lot from the game. But there wasn't a whole lot of the game other than the fourth quarter there. But hey, we're 10-2. We got Kirk Cousins coming to US Bank Stadium on Sunday. So it's a big week. And, it's the biggest thing is, as much as I hate this and I hate saying it, let's hope the Packers do us a solid on Thursday night and knock the Lions off. And then it's a whole new ball game as long as we can keep pace. So with that programming note, we will be back at our normal time this Friday night at 7 p.m. for the main studio show, where we will preview the Atlanta Falcons coming to town, have all the latest, all the injury stuff. We'll keep you up on the Stephon Gilmore thing and anything else that comes up between now and then. Shout out all you guys for joining in the chat again, as always. Enjoy the hell out of having you guys here every night. Taking an hour out of your busy schedules to come listen to me ramble about football. I appreciate it more than you guys ever know. Shout out again, Filipino Fan Club, Nympha and company over there watching. Thank you again. And with that, we will see you guys on Friday night, 7 p.m. Brunswick and I have the regular studio show. So you guys have a great rest of your week. And Skol Vikes, go to 11-2.